Okay, welcome back to how to build a SaaS service on Azure. This is part 5 of 5, so our final session of the webinar series. In parts 1 through 4, we looked at software as a service from a high level. We discussed an overview of what software as a service is. We looked at the various database tenancy patterns that are available for the data layer of your SaaS solution. And then we basically went from looking at that data layer and then understanding how this would all look within a microservice architecture with various decoupled services to manage things such as your orders, your customers, your billing, your onboarding. Okay. And in part 4, we discussed the Azure SaaS Development Kit. Again, to review, the Azure SaaS Development Kit is an open source project available in GitHub, and the objective there was to leverage much of the resources that we have previously released and integrate them all into one open source project that you can quickly clone, customize, and deploy out into Azure and get your own SaaS service up and running quite quickly. So to begin part 5, I just wanted to start off with a quick demo. So let's just go over to our browser here. And here you'll see the Azure SaaS Development Kit available in the Azure organization in the Azure-SaaS repo. So feel free to go ahead and clone that today. Here you'll see the Azure SaaS Development Kit SaaS Provider web application that we discussed earlier. Okay, so this is the live URL that you can access if you want to come and take a look at what's available here. All right, and then finally, I wanted to show you a live production SaaS solution that is built on the Azure SaaS Development Kit. So build leveraging the Azure SaaS Development Kit as its foundation. And what this is it's called Subscriber. It's a modern subscription platform, okay, where the idea is to get rid of subscription forms on a website. Okay, so rather than you going on someone's website to fill out their subscription form, enter your email address or your mobile number, you simply use the brand's subscriber. So in the same fashion that you would go to Facebook or an Instagram and follow a business or a brand or a person, you would come to subscriber to subscribe to them. Okay, so for example, here I'll just add in slash with my username. And you'll see here's my subscriber right here, and people can come here and subscribe with Facebook, with Google, with Apple, with email, or with telephone. Okay, so if you've ever used or have been aware of Azure AD B2C, it uses kind of the same technology where you're using OpenAPI and OAuth to authenticate with these providers, and then from their graph APIs, you're getting back their data. And what Subscriber does is takes that data and then puts it in the tenant's database, okay? But in a multi-tenant scenario, there's a tenant ID, and each tenant then has a dashboard that they can go into to go look at all of their data. All right, so if I come in and I sign in as a user, I'm just going to quickly show you the dashboard and what that looks like. So these are all the tenants that have been created that I would have access to. So I just go to mine, for example, and I can see here, I just created mine today. So I already have 5 subscribers, and we can see all the information in through there. Okay, so let's go back to our deck. I just wanted to review a few final items. Okay, so one thing that's important is tenant resolution. If you've noticed, in the subscriber web app, I went in and entered onsubscriber.com was the domain, and then slash my username, slash I am Nick Pinheiro. And how that's done is through a request path, for example. So of the tenant resolution options that are available to you, you have host header, you have request path, and you have request headers. Request path is just that. It's where you're entering a path in the URL that then the logic behind that particular controller then is able to identify who the tenant is, access the catalog database, access a number of other databases, and aggregate their data, and then display to you the particular tenant that you wanted to navigate to. Another way of doing so is using request headers, right? Where you pass, for example, an API key in the request header, and then within the catalog database, it knows that that API key corresponds to a particular tenant, and then again displays that information. Okay, so that can be used in the front end of the application, okay, or it can be used in the back end where you have a dashboard and that user can then go in and access their administrative portion of the application. Host headers, which is the first option that's shown here, is typically used in a single tenant, single app scenario that we discussed in part 2 of the series. And that's where, for example, rather than entering onsubscriber.com/I am Nick Pinheiro, I would have a host header where I'd have my own application. So I would have I am Nick Pinheiro.onsubscriber.com. Okay, and each one of these options are available in the Azure SaaS Development Kit. There are samples for them so that you can quickly get started using the appropriate one for your SaaS service. Another important item to review are naming conventions. If you go to the Azure Architecture Center and navigate to the Cloud Adoption Framework, we do have a naming convention documentation there, which will go through all of our recommended approaches for the different types of resources and resource groups that you could create and what the best naming conventions would be to go with. All right, and then finally we have a number of references and resources that you can look back at and take a look at the wingtip tax solution that we talked about. What is SaaS, the SaaS industry, and using patterns to accelerate SaaS app development on SQL database. But again, these are part of the objectives that we had to consolidate all the references and resources that correlate to building a SaaS solution on Azure. Okay, so in review, you should now be able to choose the database model that's appropriate to your scenario, explore SaaS-specific patterns that can reduce development, management, resource costs, and your time to market. So as a big takeaway, PaaS features plus SaaS patterns make Azure a highly scalable, cost-efficient platform for multi-tenant SaaS. So you can go ahead and deploy and download the Azure SaaS Development Kit, start getting accustomed with it. There'll be various commits being made to the repository moving forward. And again, feel free to contribute. And we thank you for being here today on how to build a SaaS service on Azure. And finally, if you do have any questions, feel free to email me at nick.pinheiro@microsoft.com. Thank you.